Good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's last post closing ceremony. My name is Michael Kelly, and joining us this evening from the Australian Army is Major Clinton Schwartz. We welcome the family of Private Bertie Gregson, whose story will be told shortly. We welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that support them. We acknowledge the members of RSL and Services Clubs Association, RSL Victoria, and RSL Queensland, who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the pool of reflection by the family. But now if I can invite you to please stand and join in singing the national anthem. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight, we will read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 102,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and operations over more than a century. But first we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths of floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the pool of reflection.
Today, we remember and pay tribute to Private Bertie Gregson. Bertie Gregson was born in 1886 and was one of 11 children of Charles and Elizabeth Gregson of Witcherproof in northwestern Victoria. Known to his family and friends as Bert, Gregson attended the local state school before starting an apprenticeship as a printer at the Witcherproof Ensign. Afterwards, he worked at Minyip, Sea Lake and Swan Hill and met Christina Cameron, with whom he had a son, Norman, in 1910. Gregson unsuccessfully tried to enlist in the Australian Imperial Force in Mildura towards the end of 1915, but was rejected because of his bad teeth and varicose veins. He tried again in Melbourne following medical treatment and was accepted, entering camp at the Royal Park Showgrounds to train as a reinforcement for the 24th Battalion. While on home leave in Swan Hill in January 1916, Gregson married Christina and a daughter, Margaret, was conceived. After returning to Melbourne, he continued his training at Broadmeadows Camp before sailing for England in March 1916. After further training on the Salisbury Plain near Wiltshire, Gregson sailed for the Western Front in July 1916. He joined the 24th Battalion at Pozieres in early August, while it was engaged in bitter fighting for the OG Lines, a formidable German stronghold east of Pozieres village. After 3 days of bloody fighting, the OG Lines were in Australian hands, at the cost of several thousand casualties. The 24th had suffered close to 250 men killed, missing and wounded. Gregson had just been with the battalion for 3 days before he was mortally wounded in the head, most likely by a fragment from a German artillery shell. He was evacuated to the casualty clearance station near Pushy Villas, but his wounds were too serious and he died later that day. He was buried at the Pushy Villa British Cemetery. A small epitaph by his grieving wife Christina simply reads, "Rest in peace." He was 31 years old. Gregson was well known within the wider Horsham district, and his death shocked the rural communities where he lived and worked. In Minyip, the local newspaper stated that Gregson was greatly respected by a very large circle of friends, and reported that the flags at the fire station and local businesses were flown at half-mast in his honour. We do know, however, that his daughter Margaret was born 3 months after the fighting at Pozieres, and thus never met her beloved father. Bert Gregson is listed on the Roll of Honour on my right, among more than 60,000 Australians who died while serving in the First World War. His photograph is displayed beside the pool of reflection. This is but one of many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Private Bertie Gregson, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world.
They shall grow not old, as we who are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember them.
We will remember them.
lest we forget.
Lest we forget. We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Pozières or in the low scrub at Gallipoli, with his poor tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain, has thought in his last moments, well, it's over, but in Australia, they'll be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, that concludes this evening's last post ceremony. We thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial, and good evening.